Well, after 3 years of having a virtual festival, the Bocas Lit Fest returns this year for What's Your Story? That's the theme of Bocas Lit Fest 2023. And for the first time after the COVID-19 pandemic, we're all full festival back in person. So that is certainly something to look forward to. It runs from April 28th to the 30th. And I'm joined this morning to expand on what is expected from this year's events. Mr. Jean-Claude Cournand, he's the Chief Executive Officer of the Bocas Lit Fest. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, and good morning, everyone in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, sir. What's Your Story is the theme of this year's festival. It's a very, very intriguing theme. Simple, but it really opens your minds to many things. Why go with this theme? What was the decision or the thinking behind this particular theme?
Well, more increasingly over the years, we want to center the festival on you, on the person attending, and around the idea that everybody has a story. It's not just about writers and the people who could write in fancy ways, or this elite group of people, but what is your story, and how does this festival help you to understand yourself, your own story, to tell your story in a better way. So I think this year, this is one of our best themes, What's Your Story? And this is one of the themes that allow us to really bring home that idea that the festival belongs to everybody and that everybody has a story.
But also as a young writer and perhaps somebody who's new to writing, it also seems as an opportunity for me to not only probably further my passions, but discover a lot more in terms of the literary arts. Is there focus for new writers coming from this festival?
A focus on new writers?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yeah. So Bocas is the festival is really an incubator in a big way for new and emerging talents. So as a new writer attending the festival, you get a lot. You get to meet established writers, people who have succeeded as writers. Now that might sound like, okay, that is not very valuable. But then ask yourself, where in Trinidad, you're going to just bounce up writers, in such so many of them from all over the world, So you get to meet successful writers. You get to meet people, talk with them, hang out with them, ask them about their journeys. Then we have workshops. We have a number of workshops that you could attend that will help you craft, and hone your technique as a writer. Every single day we have a workshop. We have many different workshops. One that I'm particularly excited about is learning to write a memoir. What makes a great memoir? All of us want to eventually write some story about our lives. Even if we want to pass on a story to our children or grandchildren, we need to learn to write a great memoir to tell our story, right? So that aspect of workshops is another aspect of it. Then there are publishers, there are agents publishing. We have a new writers showcase where where people can actually read excerpts from their manuscripts, their books, so to say, and share the talent publicly and get public feedback on that work. They can meet publishers. They can to find out about how publishers go about the process of selecting books, what makes a great manuscript to them, publishers also with a Caribbean focus, and there are just so many other ways. There's just this energy. The booksellers, so the whole industry of writing is represented in those 3 days at the National Library, and is a really, really, really rich space for a new writer. And in fact, a number of people who have attended in the past have gone on to have had their careers accelerated because of the opportunities at Bocas Lit Fest.
Well, in that sense, what about returning to full in-person sessions following virtual sessions over the last 3 years. Considering all that is planned and all that is put forward, how much of a relief is it to return in person?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, you can only do so much virtually, and I think with our festival in particular, it's about a vibe. It's about a space, coming together of people. And the energy in the room is really a big part of it. So,
Mr. Cournand, are you with us?
oh, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, the so having it physically, we're already feeling a larger buzz. There's a lot more just excitement, going towards the festival. Just and I'm speaking from the planning side of things, us coming together as a team, putting it together, hearing the feedback, seeing what people look forward to. We've planned virtual festivals for the last 3 years, and now we have this experience and this opportunity to compare that to the experience of now doing a physical festival again. And certainly the planning the physical festival feels a lot more fun, and just there's greater sense of anticipation. So I think that will translate to the festival itself. You mean all you just have to do is just come to Dallas, and just hang around, talk to people, sit in some of the rooms that there will, as I mentioned, there are workshops, there are films, there are open mics, there's something happening every moment. And it's just easy to submerge yourself into the vibe of the festival, whereas online, you actually have to, join your Zoom, sit down. You might be cooking in the background while a session going on, but just being there in person at the festival, I think would be enough to already start to get a taste and get to experience and get to learn about literature.
Mr. Cournand, do you think there's still that warm reception towards the literary arts? And I mean that in the sense that, as you know, focusing on children, and I can say that that's absolutely grand. I think that's brilliant, and more of that needs to be done. But is the focus on children because with modern age, modern technology, be it television, social media, there's been that shift away from the literary arts and from reading. Is that
Right.
one of the focuses of the Bocas Lit Fest?
Yeah, so Bocas Lit Fest has two primary audiences. We have the writers, and we do a lot to help develop writers at all stages of their career, from the new writer to the senior writer, to writers who are now moving into the international scene, right? And we have examples, awards, programs, and opportunities tailored to each stage of writing. We also have to develop readers and develop a reading public in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, a reading public also has to be defined, right? Because reading the papers, reading blog posts on social media, that is all part of what it means to be a modern human, and to read, But we also think that literature, in the sense of fiction, right? Classics, you have your Derek Walcott, you have Miguel Street, you have the things you would have learned in school. These things are critical to understanding our context in the Caribbean. To understand, there was writing inspired by historical movements, and that captures the Caribbean identity and is really resting around shaping that, right? And that writing has value.
Yes.
For how people think of themselves, how we form ourselves as a society, and so forth. And just reading as a whole, it prevents misinformation. It reduces it, because readers are able to critically analyze. They're able to look at multiple perspectives. If you think about reading, it's really about listening. So it's like listening to a very long speech. Somebody's speaking for 6 hours, sharing a story, and you imagine it and you experience it privately, but you're not interrupting them or anything like that. So there's this skill that is embedded within reading, which I think involves a level of humility, a level of listening and so forth. And children, I think, stand to benefit from that. You know, there's a lot of research that talk about the benefits of reading to children, reading from the womb, right? And before children could comprehend, to hear words to develop their, as the brain is developing, to connect the dots with language, to be introduced to more complex words, more complex ways of expressing oneself. You're limited by a language. Your expression of humanity, of your humanity, expression of yourself is limited by the language, and you have to do that. So reading expands our ability to express ourselves. And I think, young people, children from, as I say, womb, teenage, young adult, and UE, this is a real critical time of development. If we really want to sustain a strong literary heritage in Trinidad and Tobago, then we need to work on not just developing readers at a young level, but also writers, at a young level, but developing readers also, people who have a passion for reading, people who see value in it, and people who enjoy it. Because fundamentally, people think that reading is boring for a lot of people, that it is not something that is for fun, but to get lost in our world, in our book, and really, be fully engrossed in it and so forth, is something everybody should experience. I'm not sure if, growing up, what that book might have been for you, but I remember reading The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and the common books like this. But when and the days when I would be reading those books, your brain just locked in. You can be sitting down, just like you'll see young people sitting on a computer for 5-6 hours straight. 5-6 hours straight on a book. And the difference is that has a developmental impact right back into academics, right back into your communication skills and so forth, So, it's really a world and an opportunity to get engrossed. And then the other thing, and not to go on too long, right? But, a lot of the content on Netflix, right? A lot of the content, Marvel and so forth, Infinity War and all that, they first started as books, as literary points of imagination. It did not just emerge straight to a movie screen. There was this process of somebody refining their ideas and putting together, these characters and so forth. And it actually with the comic book readers who helped make that movement of possible today in film.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Cournand, let me ask you, because you've said a lot, but you've stated a lot of valuable information, and I hope everybody digested that, because two things in particular that stood out to me. Reading holds value, and it allows us the ability to expand on expressing ourselves. But you also focused from a Caribbean-centric perspective, which I think is excellent. Culturally, the Bocas Lit Fest, I believe this year, they're having an all-mass competition. So storytelling from a cultural perspective, can you speak to us about that particular highlight of the festival?
All right, highlights. Okay, all right, so before the festival, and you run up to the festival, we have a storytelling caravan. We have, we've done a number of sessions that involve carrying storytellers to different parts of Trinidad, Tobago, Matura, Toco, Tobago, Cuba, and so forth, right? And we have storytellers working with children to tell a story, as well as facilitate the children creating their own story. So the children will come together, sit down, and work with the storyteller and actually script a story, right? And the story is then put together, illustrated, and published, and children get to see their names on the back of a book. So that is actually happening, every weekend as we lead up to the festival. So that is something that you can find out more about. You can go to www.bocaslitfest.com or our Facebook page and see where the caravan heads to next. right? But at the festival itself, every day we will have a main workshop. So we have, and for anybody who's wanted to learn, the first day on Friday, we have a workshop on the preservation for beginners, right? The second day, we have a workshop on, well, what makes a great memoir. Actually, that's on the same day. And then on the third day, we have intimacy and poetry. Sorry, on the Saturday, intimacy and poetry. So about writing poetry for loved ones and so forth, right? And other workshops like that. Then we have a number of film screenings, right? So we have a film that we actually did 2 to 3 years ago called Porter a Writer's Haven. So you'll be screening that film. And then we have a number of other films that based on a Caribbean context, Caribbean Eye, Visionaries, Crossing Over, that looks at Lancelot Lane and other Caribbean literary character figures, right? We have an extempo debate on the first day as well between Black Sage and Dion Diaz. So, you see an extempo and our literary traditions coming out there. We have the big ideas. So that is a panel type of discussion. Is more like the traditional festival, and people get, when people think of a festival, they think of panels and that type of thing. But we have a few panels. One of the main ones is a central discussion that we have in every festival. This one is called the Big Ideas.
I'm also seeing tributes to Gordon Rollet and Samuel Selvon.
Yeah. So actually, we would be launching an essay writing competition centered around the work of Samuel Selvon for students. And again, that's something open to the public. There will be a prize connected to that, and it will be tailored to secondary school students.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Cournand, I want to thank you very much for joining me. As we wrap up this discussion, could you just once more tell us where we can get more information on the Bocas Lit Fest and the Poetry Slam?
Yeah, so www.bocaslitfest.com. So just Google Bocas Lit Fest and you'll go to the website. The first thing on the website really is a breakdown of the program. You can click Friday. You can see what's happening from morning to night, Saturday and Sunday, right? And some of the highlights, we have the finals of the National Poetry Slam. That's on a Sunday, and on a Friday we have this big line in a place called the Big Black Box, where we have actually some of the best poets from around the world who have Caribbean heritage performing along with music and so forth in Port of Spain. So there's something from the morning straight to the night. There's something for children. If you have kids and you want to bring them, there's a children's program and there's an adult program.
Well, Mr. Jean-Claude Cournand, thank you very much for joining me this morning. This sounds very much exciting. I look forward to it, especially these tributes and the opportunity for new young writers to develop their skills, their passions, and hopefully lead to careers in the future. So thank you very much for the work that is being done, and best of luck for the festival next weekend.
So thank you so much.